Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and today we have a special guest, Miss Tracy Lake. She's running for Jackson County executive. Miss Lake, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine today. How are you doing?
We're doing fine. How about telling our audience a little bit about yourself? And as I say all the time, let's go back to kindergarten and let's talk about some of the major milestones in your life that helped propel you to the point that you're running for Jackson County executive position.
Okay, well, to start it all back in the beginning, my great grandfather was Reverend Siri S. Myers, who was a prominent pastor in the Kansas City community in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. My mother is Stacy Battle, who is a dentist, but is also a prominent figure in the Kansas City community as well. And because of my background, my family has been very much involved into social activism for years. However, I just became involved in social activism in 2019 due to the property tax crisis. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, but I was primarily raised on the Kansas side. I went to Leawood Elementary School, middle school, Blue Valley North High School. Then I went to college at the University of Kansas, where I graduated with a major in finance, a minor in Chinese language. I was also the only Black female to do so in those two areas of study. Then I went to study abroad to further my Chinese language and culture education, where I studied at National Taiwan University, National Taiwan Normal University, and an institute in Beijing as well. Then I went to UMKC Law School, where I graduated with a JD in law. And currently I've been a practicing attorney in Kansas City for 7 years.
So tell me, what was the underlying factors in you deciding to run for public office?
Initially, I had no aspirations to run for an elected position. What propelled me to run for Jackson County executive was the 2019 property tax crisis. I live in Hyde Park, and my neighborhood was hit especially hard, as were the other surrounding neighborhoods. My property taxes on my house went up 300%. I own 2 blank lots next to my house that also went up 1,100%. And around my neighborhood, numerous neighbors had the same exact story. I created this blank form called the Sunshine Law Request Act form that I distributed around to the community so that they could ask their Jackson County government what data they actually used in order to evaluate their properties. And fast forward to from June 2019 was when I was notified of my property taxes. Then fast forward to December 2019, when I went in front of the Board of Equalization in order to get my property taxes or argue about the assessment. We first have to go in front of the mediator before we go in front of the BOE. And the mediator was like, Miss Lake, I understand about your house. We're going to recall the property taxes on your house, but these 2 lots, I don't understand why you're complaining. And so I look at him and I'm like, well, I bought each lot in 2017 for $4,000 each. And now you're telling me it's worth $52,000. And he goes, well, because Miss Lake, you have houses on each of those lots. And of course, I came prepared to this hearing, and I had a stack of papers like this high. And I showed him the pictures to show that these were 2 blank lots. And then he showed me the pictures of the houses on these lots. And this is what the Jackson County government did. They took a picture of the side of my house, put it on the lot where my house was on, took a picture of the front of my house, put it on the lot number 2, and took a picture of the other side and put it on lot number 3 to give the illusion that there was a property on each of these lots. And when the mediator realized this, he was like, well, there's nothing I can do about this. I can't recall everything. We have to go in front of the BOE. And luckily, the BOE reversed all the property tax increases on our property. But that night, I went home and I thought about the thousands of other property owners that didn't appeal their property taxes, either due to lack of ability or lack of knowledge to. And I went out to the community and I asked numerous politicians that were in unelected positions if they were going to challenge Frank White and run for Jackson County executive, and all of them refused. And then I realized that I could run for Jackson County executive. So that's when I decided to run for Jackson County executive.
Tell me this, how do you feel that Jackson County in general is handling the community's business? The legislature and the exec.
I feel like there's a high degree of stagnation and complacency. There's a lot of things that the Jackson County government can be doing with our community, but they're unable to do it because of historical mismanagement and also a lack of focus. Now, one of the things I want to mention is during the property tax crisis, the Jackson County agents were going from community to community saying that the reason why they had to raise people's property taxes was because the government didn't have any money and they needed more money to our government. But Nicole Galloway, our Missouri state auditor, she released an audit of Jackson County government, which was only a partial audit, and found out that our budget did not account for over $100 million for years. So this means that we had $100 million that we could have used for our community, for initiatives to help our community progress, modernize, or create new initiatives. And we didn't use that money because our accounting was off. And this is a big problem, because then you have to ask the question of, well, after this accounting or after this audit was done, what has the Jackson County government done afterwards to fix this massive issue? But if you look at what's going on in the Jackson County government, nothing has changed. We still have the same county auditor. We still have the same accounting firm that we've been using for years. We still have the same director of finance in Jackson County. And our chief administrative officer, who is responsible for tailoring the Jackson County budget each year, that has changed. That's because he retired to be a member of the BOE.
Well, explain to our audience, everybody is not as sophisticated as you are, what the BOE is.
So the Board of Equalization, it is basically a board that is over. So when we talk about property taxes, we have, the Missouri government. So it's top down: Missouri government, State Tax Commission, Board of Equalization, and then the Jackson County government. One of the duties of the Jackson County executive is to assess and collect taxes. So when they're doing that duty, if a citizen believes that the assessment was incorrect, they would appeal to the Board of Equalization, and the Board of Equalization will take in what the data that the county used and what the citizen is providing and determine whether or not the county's assessment of their properties was correct. And if the citizen still disagrees, they can appeal it to the State Tax Commission, where the State Tax Commission will then make their own determination.
Excellent. When we get off air, I've got questions for you, sister, because I've got a $1,200 tax bill myself down there for a car that I hadn't owned in 10, 15 years that was totaled out that they took, and then they won't take it off your taxes.
Yeah, it's a huge issue in our county. And that's why I'm running, because I want to reform the Jackson County government. I want to fix the financial issues and actually modernize the Jackson County government so it can be competitive with governments nationwide, which I'm not talking about Johnson County. I'm talking about county governments like Wake County and Cook County. But right now, in my opinion, we're 20 years behind. We lack, public transportation system. We lack infrastructure, like our digital infrastructure in Jackson County is way behind. And that is why I'm running, to give my community a choice as to whether or not they want to change in leadership, a leader that will actually, it actually has the energy and drive to push through these initiatives.
Tell me this: if you were to get in, would you give the press access to you? Because I find as media that most of the politicians, they don't want to come out until it's time to run and to tell their community what's going on a week or monthly basis. When we call down there, it's always we'll get back with you or something. They never want to come on air to say what their program is, what they're doing. And I'm not just talking about Jackson County.
Yeah.
I think overall, our political establishment is definitely not serving the Black community at its best, by no means. And I'm impartial to this, but I'm happy to see fresh faces like yourself getting involved. And it takes a certain amount of fortitude and courage to even do this in a city like Kansas City, how the Black community reacts to new faces, new ideas. But from my perspective, for the last 35 years, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement with the county or the city or the state as it relates to the Black community.
Yes. Yes. And well, just to answer your first question, I plan to be one of the most connected politicians if elected as Jackson County executive, because my plan, which is entitled the Jackson Plan, is a very ambitious plan that will need massive community involvement in order to be initiated through. And so, yes, I will hold myself available to the media. And also, I plan to still have a media presence on my political page, Stacy Lake and Mo, on all platforms when elected as Jackson County executive, to actually educate people as to what the Jackson County executive is, but what I would be doing in office to, I think that politicians should have at least a monthly press conference. And when I say a press conference, it's not where all the press is, but just something like we're doing right now, where it's just I'm sitting down talking to the people about what's going on, what I'm doing, and what you need to know. And that's so critical.
So it's critical to move forward. I've offered that to every basic politician on both sides, the city, county. Melissa Robinson took it up. I'm like, after every monthly council meeting, come on and do a 15-second, 15-minute update on what's going on. That's how you get support from your community. Yes. And the establishment knows that you're on top of your game. And not only are you on top of your game, that you're keeping your constituents on top of their game.
Yes.
So with that being said, what would you have to say to our community in closing?
Well, I want to talk about my Jackson plan quickly.
Please.
So I'm running on a policy focus initiative called the Jackson Plan that's not only focused on reforming the Jackson County, but also modernizing Jackson County for the future. The Jackson Plan is an acronym for Justice System Reform, Auditing Jackson County Government, Countywide Infrastructure Improvements, Keeping Taxes and Utilities Affordable, Small Business Rejuvenation, Ownership Initiative for Single Family and Households, and a Neighbor to Neighbor transportation plan that is focused on providing the first public transportation system to Jackson County that will connect all municipalities in Jackson County together. So when we're talking about initiatives that will help our Black communities, the Jackson plan, like my campaign's slogan is residents first. This Jackson plan is specifically tailored for the residents because for too long, our county government and in part our city government has not been promoting initiatives that will specifically help its residents. One example that I always bring up to people is what big businesses have actually come to Jackson County or to city or Kansas City that actually provide massive amounts of jobs to our citizens in the last 10 to 20 years? Or what has Jackson County government actually done for us in the last 20 years? And a lot
I said 35 years.
Yeah, a lot of people will say, I don't know, we spent $50 million on a stadium. And the thing is that is very troubling because the Jackson County government has, like this year, their budget is $452 million. This is their budget, which, I find that a little bit questionable if it's $452 million, because as I stated before, there hasn't been a thorough follow-up audit of the Jackson County government's finances to ensure that these funds are actually all accounted for and they're actually being utilized properly, right? But if we actually have a person in there like me with a financial background, but I'm a civil litigator. This is what I do for a living. I've investigated corporations. I investigated governments for compliance. Oh, sorry, my camera stopped for a second. Hold on a second. It sometimes does this, but for governmental compliance, but also legal compliance. If we're actually able to utilize the Jackson County government's finances properly, not only can we stimulate our Jackson County economy, but we can actually use the finances for its citizens. Specifically, what I think a lot of people in our community would be excited about is first, small business rejuvenation. A lot of people in the Black community, one thing that I love is their entrepreneurial spirit. A lot of them want to start and establish small businesses in our community. And it is a shame that we do not have a specific fund for small businesses in our community where an owner who potentially would be denied with getting a grant to help their businesses because of several factors, that they can't go to the Jackson County government and ask for a grant to help them either to establish a small business in their community or to help them when their business faces some sort of catastrophic event like their storefront shattering or their storefront glass shattering, which for a corporation, a $2,500 expense is nothing, but for a small business, that could be a situation where it's like, hey, am I going to pay myself this month or am I going to fix my storefront window glass, right? Which is very important. And it's important that the Jackson County government has some sort of fund to help these small businesses, because right now we don't, while other county governments nationwide do, right? Now, ownership initiative for single family households is my promise as Jackson County executive to not only protect our single family residential households from outside corporate buyers coming in and buying large swaths of our single family residential households, which is currently happening today, but also provide grant opportunities to homeowners to fix up their homes, like for instance, to paint their houses, to build retaining walls, to fix their roofs. We should be encouraging them investing their money into their houses because better houses in our neighborhood equate to more equity in our county. And we should be encouraging more people to become single family household owners. Right now, we're losing the battle just to have the right to our houses. And the Jackson County government isn't helping our citizens at all, especially with the property tax crisis of 2019. And we need a leader that actually will protect our house owners because those are the people that build our communities. Next, the neighbor to neighbor transportation plan, which is something that I'm very passionate about. I love public transportation system. And as I stated before, I lived in Asia for 3 years, which they have many different modes of public transportation systems there. I want Jackson County to have an actual modern public transportation system. And this does not mean the KC Max, and this does not mean extending the streetcar. This is a public transportation system that will make it so that you can go from Kansas City to Lone Jack faster by taking the public transportation system than by using a car, so that people will actually have the option in some ways not to own a car. They could just be like, hey, I'm going to go to Lee Summit, to party or to chill or whatnot, and they can take the public transportation system there. That will be faster for them to take than driving a car and go back to Kansas City. And we don't have
It
these
has
initiatives.
multiple benefits, and I think people are waking up. This hot weather, there's no climate change behind these automobiles. And I'm saying that is moving forward some of the progressive thinking that you have talked about in this interview. I wanted to break in on you. They call me the cutoff king. When you were talking about stadiums, because at one time I used to own the second largest, third largest Black construction company in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And that stadium should have made at least 2 or 3 Black millionaires, and it didn't. Yeah. And there were Black people that were over the MBE part of that. And all of that goes to what you are saying about mismanagement. You didn't talk about nepotism and that type stuff, but it's there. And where, from my perspective, we like 3 steps away from Pendergrass and them. The same people have been doing the same thing. And I wanted to know, because I renovated the courthouse downtown, courthouse in Independence, Lake Chicomo Sheriff Station. So I've had dealings with the county. Mm-hmm. And you have to know how this stuff works. And so, again, just not as media, as a individual person, I am glad to see that you have some people would say that audacity to run against a popular figure in our community.
Well, it's mostly because I like to say that it's not a nice word to say, but I was forced to run because of the trauma that I saw in my community. And, I can't even explain the pain that my community went through in the 2019 property tax crisis. A lot of people lost their homes. We're talking about 70, 80-year-olds crying, pleading with the assessment department that they can't pay these taxes because they lived on fixed incomes. And then to come and find out that not only did they not, and these are admissions by the Jackson County government, that not only did they not use standard proper valuation tools to evaluate each parcel by parcel. So you use different modes of valuation on different parcels, which is not proper, right? But also they, in some aspects, use corrupt data to evaluate these parcels. And instead of recalling the property taxes, which they should have according to the county charter, which is something that Mike Sanders, and I'm not saying Mike Sanders was a good Jackson County executive, okay? Because we all know, and I'll tell your audience what he did really quickly. 2000, like Mike Sanders went to jail for campaign finance fraud, essentially. But Mike Sanders in 2013 had a smaller property tax crisis for 6,000 parcels appealed, saying that the property tax increases were excessive. And Mike Sanders did his duty. He went to the charter and he recalled those 6,000 parcels after finding out that the residents were correct, right? But Frank White didn't do anything. He did not come out to the community explaining why his valuations were correct. He did not come out to the community explaining why he was not going to recall the property taxes. And that greatly disturbed me as a resident. And that's why I'm running for my community, to give my community a choice on where they want to see Jackson County to be in the future. And, before we conclude this, because you mentioned something about the WMBE, which I want to touch upon. As Jackson County executive, one of the things that I'm also running on, and this also shows the stagnation and complacency, is the fact that we haven't done a resurvey of the minority and women-owned businesses in our county for a very long time. And as Jackson County executive, I'm going to redo that survey, because I think right now I could be wrong, so don't hold me to this, but in the charter, I believe it's the figure right now is like it's like around 9 to 12%, right? But we all know in our community that there's been an explosion of small businesses over the last several years. We have more minority and women-owned businesses than ever before. Thus, we need to reconduct the survey so more, women and minority-owned businesses would be able to have opportunities for county projects.
Well, from my perspective, being real with you, I don't even understand that MBE, WMB, all of that. White people don't have to say that they white to get a job. And from my perspective, all of that is reasons to keep you out, checking all of those boxes. And when it comes to opportunity, financial opportunity, and other opportunities, it has not been here for Black business. And I've had several Black businesses, and I think that something really needs to be done about that. But again, you have to have concerned citizens that are educated on the issues, to educate their voting base on the issues so that they make better decisions and they're not just voting on the base of personality, color, and those type things. That is what Cascade Media is trying to do as it relates to getting more of our people familiar with new ideas, new people, and things are not going to be the way they are or have been. With things are changing on a minute-to-minute basis, and you have got to be, if you're in a position to pivot, to take your community and your constituents in the right direction. And I really believe you have to be a forward thinker, especially with all the competition nationwide for businesses, human resources, and what have you. So with that, I'll again ask you, what are your closing statements?
I am running to give my community a choice as to what future they want Jackson County to be. Under my Jackson plan, it's a plan to not only reform Jackson County to make sure that your tax monies are actually being spent on the residents, but it's also to modernize Jackson County so it will be competitive with other nations in the future. So let me be that choice, and also vote for me on August 2nd, 2022. My social media handles are Stacy Lake MO on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My website is www.jacksoncountyexecutive.com. It's
a plum pleasing pleasure to have you on the show. I stole that. That's one of my other interviewers. That's his closing line. I like to steal it all the time to make you mad. But as we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
Yes.
Good night.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.